show hasn't even started and Kjell Iverson's in timeout. Let's get into it with the lead. We're not screwing around anymore, Liam.
This is it. The rules have been set.
If you talk about trading Nuge or trading Darnell Nurse in the YouTube chat, you get put in timeout. And I think we need to implement like a 3 strikes in a show or 2 show policy. You'll just get straight up banned. Listen, our chat needs to be a place for good, honest hockey talk.
Yes.
Not nonsense.
No hypothetical stuff.
We do kind of like hypothetical trades, though.
Yes.
Just not Nuge or Nurse related, because it's nonsense. Anyways, welcome into Oilersnation Everyday, live from the Sports Closet studio and live on the Oilersnation YouTube, where Brian was in and says, Tyler, you can't leave us with Jay and Maple Leafs now. Yeah, that's right. I'm not doing the show tomorrow. I'm out. I'm going golfing.
Mm-hmm.
You and Jay, maybe Jay. We even asked Jay if he's doing the show tomorrow, but he kind of said,
I might ask Bag Milk too.
Make it a little roundtable, take some listener questions.
A little cast, take the pressure off me a little bit. Then all I have to do is read ads organically.
There you go.
Which is definitely the most challenging part of the show.
Yeah, the chat is bumping today. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and drop a question in the chat as well. Our pal Rusty was going at Kjell Iverson about his idea. I'm going to just skip right over that. Wow, there's a lot of talk about this. Yep. He has a no movement clause. We've covered that 100 times on this show. Things are getting very controversial. Down we go. Down we go. Look at that. No comments to get to because they're all about the one thing. Rusty says, what about a buying out Campbell comment? Yeah, no. I don't know.
Buying out Campbell?
We did that thing earlier in the year. It's not happening.
The others don't have enough flexibility to be buying out Campbell.
Yeah. It is silly season, though, around the NHL, and a couple of new players had their names, like, firmly added to the rumor mill. Mm-hmm. We had kind of talked about, Pierre-Luc Dubois likely to be moved. Alex DeBrincat, I wonder if he stays or goes in Ottawa. It sounds like both those guys are going to be on their way out of those Canadian markets this offseason. PLD has for lack of a better phrase, he's bent over the Jets.
Yes.
What are they going to do? If they go to another team that's not Montreal and say, do you want Dubois? The other team's going to say, we want to talk extension with him. Dubois is going to say, I'm not signing an extension with you. And the team's going to go, hey, sorry, Winnipeg, we're not giving up a ton for this guy because he won't sign an extension with us.
So Dubois has been in the league now for 7 years.
Wow, that's actually a long time.
And he's demanded out twice.
More or less.
If you're another team, like, do you really want to pay the high price for a guy that has basically said, like, he's not happy anywhere?
What's his career high in points?
63, which was this year. Before that, it was 61, which was year 2. 28 goals is a career high for him.
Even in shortened seasons, he wasn't doing a whole heck of a lot. Like
20 points in 41.
He's a second-line center who, for some reason, still has this top 3 pick lure to him, right?
Yeah.
Where people think he's maybe more than he is, and he's just really not. If I'm the Canadians, because, again, that's the one spot where we keep thinking he'll go to. Why would I give up anything significant? Am I trying to win the Stanley Cup next year? No.
Nope.
So why would I give up a first-round pick plus for a guy when next summer I can just sign him as a UFA to a sweetheart deal?
What is, I'm trying to pull it up here. What is the Canadian situation down the middle? Obviously, Nick Suzuki, they are kind of thin, I suppose. He would definitely help them, but also, you're right. Like, why are you mortgaging the future so much for this guy? Like, it just seems unnecessary when, like you said, you can just wait one more year, let him be unhappy wherever he goes, and then just go sign him the year after.
And that's what I'm getting at, is you can just sign him the year after. Because I really do think when you look at that Montreal forward group and what they'll be 2 years from now, okay, you got Kirby Dach. I think he's more of a winger at this point.
Yes.
You got Dach. You got Gallagher, Josh Anderson, Uri Slavkovsky, Cole Caulfield's in the mix as well. Whoever you pick this year, potentially another forward to add into the lineup. You got a guy like Philip Masar coming up. Sean Farrell is a hyped up college guy coming. They have a lot of wingers in that system. They're missing a 2C for behind Suzuki. Dubois is that guy.
Yes.
He's a perfect fit for them on the ice. I'm talking more from the Winnipeg perspective of like, F this dude, man. Like, if he would have just kept his mouth shut, you could have dealt them for a much better return. And if he would have maybe told, or if maybe you should have jumped ahead of it last year and been like, hey, we're just moving you now and getting as much as we can for you. But I almost think there's a point, if you're Winnipeg, if Montreal's not going to give you what you want, No other team's going to give you anything because they think he's just going to go to Montreal. And again, I'm kind of just filling in the blanks and reading the tea leaves on that side of things. But do you not just play hardball? You qualify him if he wants to sign an offer sheet somewhere, which again, he won't, because what team's going to do that?
Mm-hmm.
So he's not going to sign an offer sheet anywhere. If you're the Jets, you can qualify him and say, you going to play here next year? And if he says no, you say, have fun sitting out, asshole.
Yeah, I mean,
enjoy tanking your value.
He's a restricted free agent, right? He's not an unrestricted free agent. Like, the Jets hold all the power in this negotiation.
Yeah.
Really. And it's not the only one I can kind of think of that's kind of close to it was like Matthew Tkachuk, but he gave the Flames a full year's notice that he wasn't going to sign there.
Full year, talk to the Panthers. Yeah.
And this just feels like Dubois thinks he's bigger than he actually is. He's a second line center. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had 40 more points than him this season.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't think he's that great. And like you said, like, it's just what does he really expect from all of this?
Yeah. Someone asked if he has arb rights. Yeah, he does. So again, you want to go to arbitration with him? You're the Jets. You got nothing but cap space, and he keeps saying he doesn't want to play there. I would take him to arb. I'd bring him back for a year. I would walk him to the deadline, and then I'd treat him as a rental. You're probably going to get a second. And someone compared it to it was Christopher Palmer, the Giroux from Philly to Florida deal. Okay, so at the deadline,
I kind of thought that too.
He's a pure rental at that point, right? Some team in playoff contention will be like, hell yeah, I'd like Pierre-Luc Dubois to be my 3C as I push for the playoffs. So you'll get some for him at the deadline. And if his value's nowhere good right now, then you hold on to him.
He'll be the number one guy at the deadline if he's still there. He'll be number one on Frank's board, that's for sure.
The other name is Alex DeBrincat. Mike McKenna and I today on Daily Faceoff, live every day at 10 o'clock Mountain Time if you want to get more of a online hockey fix in your life. We were talking about spots for Alex DeBrincat. He mentioned the Detroit Red Wings, a team with a decent amount of cap space this year, $30 million potentially. They also have multiple first-round picks in each of the next 2 drafts and 3 second-rounders this year. DeBrincat from around that area. It would be a nice fit as they look to add. I think they need more high-end offense on that team. Dylan Larkin is good. Lucas Raymond is really good as well. They have some nice young players there. I think they need a good high-end piece. The team I think that should be knocking on the door of the Ottawa Senators for DeBrincat, though, the Buffalo Sabres. Man, their biggest need, the thing that will take them from close to a playoff team, is giving Dylan Cousins help. That guy's playing with like Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka this season. They are both very good young players. Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka could both be top 6 guys going forward. I think they could be very good top 9 guys next year. You get DeBrincat, you can afford them. $16.9 million in cap space this year with almost your full roster signed. You can afford him this year, sign him to an extension next year. You have like 40-some million bucks in cap space. You could sign him, Darlene, Owen Power. You're good to go. You're now running these dynamic duos of Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck, Dylan Cousins and Alex DeBrincat. You got all these complementary pieces: Skinner, Olofsson, Krebs, Quinn, Peterka. You have a chance to build one of the best top 9s in the NHL if you go out and get this guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Like, DeBrincat's a legit number 1 winger in the league, right? First line winger. Yeah. So I think Buffalo would be a good spot. I'm going to sprinkle an idea on you, though, Tyler. Yeah. What about the Pittsburgh Penguins?
I think he's too expensive.
You think he'd be too expensive?
Unless the contract's going back the other way or something, but I think it's too expensive.
Where are we at here? Pittsburgh, I think, have around 20 million. Yeah, around 20 million. You think he's going to get 8-9?
Maybe maybe he'd go like 7x7 at the cheapest on a long-term deal. It'd be tempting if I'm Pittsburgh.
I think if you want to add a little bit more youth to the lineup, maybe Ottawa takes a contract back, like a Granlund or a Patterson.
What's the positive asset there?
For Ottawa?
Yeah.
Maybe you get a pick.
You need more than a pick. You gave up a first, second, and third a year ago.
Owen Pickering. No, that's way too much. They don't even need defensemen in Ottawa. Exactly. That top 4 is like locked in forever. I don't see a fit there
just because there's no assets. Like, at least with Buffalo, you could sit there and, okay, let's take a first this year. Sure, if you're Buffalo, you're probably okay giving up a first at this point. And maybe it's a first in JJ Peterka. German connection.
That's true.
Stützle.
Ottawa probably want to have some NHL players.
Probably, or someone that's
Granlund and Patterson are both NHL players, but what's the ceiling?
Exactly.
They've probably hit it.
Peterka, 21, playing with Stützle. That story's sick. You get a first back in the deal as well. Maybe it's a bit too much there. Maybe it's Peterka and a second because Buffalo has some extra seconds. I don't know. I think that's an interesting little fit there. Here's what's coming up today on the show. As always, live from the Sports Closet studio. We have a giant offseason question for Sherwood Ford. David Quadrelli from Canucks Army is going to stop by and talk to us about the Canucks offseason. We're going to do a Pacific Division offseason preview for every team in the division over the next couple of weeks. So Quads is going to kick that off for us. It'll be brought to you by Star Mechanical. A player grade for UFC 289. It's Ryan McLeod. Trade machine for AMA Travel. All of that in the next 30-some minutes here on the show. Let's get into our giant offseason question. Yesterday, we had Frank Seravalli on the show. He dropped an article, some RFAs around the NHL who might not be receiving qualifying offers. If you don't know how that works, you basically, if you're the team and you have an RFA, kind of like the Oilers will do with Costin and McLeod, you can qualify them, which means it's a one-year deal at a marginal raise that's set in the CBA. It's like an extra 10% or some shit like that. So it's a marginal raise. The player can accept it, come back on that one-year deal. You're good. By qualifying him, you also prevent him from becoming a UFA. You can also look at an RFA and say, we have no interest in this. We're going to walk away, not qualify you, and that player will become a UFA on July 1. Here are the players, 5 of them, that Frank had written down who could be eligible to not receive QOs. Mackenzie Blackwood's at the top of the list. No interest from Edmonton there.
No, not anymore.
He's
a year ago, maybe.
He's a 1C, I call him.
Yes.
You don't want him to be your 1B. He's got some upside. He's got 1B upside, but right now he's a 1C where you could trust him with 25 games if he stays healthy.
Do you remember when people would put out those mock Canada rosters and he was the starting goalie or on the roster at least?
Yep.
Yikes. Maybe the Spengler Cup roster.
That's a dig. That is a dig. Maxime Comtois, number 2 on the list. This is a guy we talked about at the deadline as a possible like Jesse Puuljarvi trade swap, kind of like who needs a change of scenery for guy who needs a change of scenery. He's 24 years old, 6'2", 110 pounds. Here's where if you bring a 1-year deal for like $1.75 million and you move Foegele, and he's your Foegele replacement, a guy who can bring you some physical bite. His career high is 16 goals in 55 games. So he scored at a 20-goal pace once. Outside of that, offense has been an issue for Comtois. A lot of things have been an issue for Comtois. But I think he could be a very interesting buy low candidate if you end up moving both Foegele and Yamamoto.
I'm with you. When I was looking through this list, this was kind of the guy I thought about too. The thing is with these players from Anaheim are just teams in that regard, right? Like the confidence is low for literally everybody. Like a fresh spot for this guy might boost his morale a little bit. Maybe you can get back to that 16-goal range, like even if it's 12 goals, right? Like the potential's there. He's only years old. I think Comtois would be the pick I would look at. And
cheaper, younger Foegele.
That's kind of what I think could be a better for the Oilers right now.
Next name on the list is Denis Gurianov, and I see a few of you in the chat here saying you'd be open to bringing in Gurianov. Flynn McCoy, if he's cheap, I'm 100% in on giving him a chance. Let's take a look at the stats card here. 6'3", 205 pounds, left shot, but prefers to play the right side. Last season, 7 goals in 66 games. So a stat line that is pretty similar to Maxime Comtois. He's 2 years older. Okay, so again, it's kind of a wash here. He's in a way Russian Maxime Comtois, but he likes playing the right side, which would almost make him more of a fit. I think I like Comtois a little bit more than I like Gurianov, but hey, Gurianov actually does have a 20-goal season under his belt in 2019-20, scored 11 goals last season, had a down year this year, shot only 6%. Same thing, $1.5 million. If you're just looking to fill out your roster, your bottom 6 with high upside pieces, you could do worse than Gurianov.
Yeah, you could. And you look at his stats from when he went to the Cup final with Dallas to 9 goals, 17 points on that Cup run. Yeah. Like, he is a serviceable player if you just need a guy to kind of fill a spot in your top 9. I don't know. Like, I feel like if he wouldn't be someone I would sign on day 1, but in a couple of weeks, like, is he your Matthias Janmark signing in a similar manner, right? A couple of weeks into the free agency period, I've been looking at Gurianov.
4th on the list, Jesse Puuljarvi. 5th on the list, Trent Frederick. 6'3", 215-pound centerman. Had a great year in Boston. 17 goals. Shooting percentage was a little high. Probably comes down a little bit closer to his career average of 10. I think he is a bottom 6 center. Brings you some intensity when he's engaged. Think he can kill penalties. can probably get you 15 goals. I wonder if he might be a bit too expensive. Like, I think he's young Nick Bukestad, is he not? 25 years old? If some team's willing to give Nick Bukestad $2 million, there will be teams out there willing to give Nick Bukestad $2.5 million. Or sorry, Trent Frederick 2.25.
And he has the factor of he'll fight anybody too.
Yeah.
Who was it a few years? Didn't he fight Lucic or someone? Or was
know.
it Reeves or someone? Like he challenged them, and I think
love him.
People would love that guy here. I would love him here.
I think he's too expensive.
I think he'll price his way out, and someone will probably regret it in a few years.
Yeah, he's a left shot, so not a perfect fit, because then you'd have 4 left shots down the middle. That's not exactly ideal. If this was a world where Ryan McLeod didn't exist, I'd be all over Trent Frederick, but I'm not moving out Ryan McLeod to take a chance on him, who I think would be a more expensive third-line center.
Yeah, I mean,
the physical intangibles are tempting.
The thing with him, like you said, the others have 4 left shot centermen.
Yeah.
At least if you bring in back Derek Ryan, you can rotate him through, and he can take face-offs and stuff like that. So that kind of works. But Trent Frederick, I would take him on my team any day of the week.
Rusty says Frederick would be awesome here, but I agree, too expensive. Yeah. Someone said poor Puuljarvi. I bet you it's 50-50 he's even in the NHL next year.
Puuljarvi?
I wonder if the Ducks take a look at him again. I wonder if the Kraken take a look at him because they had success with a guy like Eli Tolvanen.
I wonder if the Columbus Blue Jackets look at him. Patrick Laine, Finnish GM. Hey, we'll give you $900K for a year.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
The upside's there.
Yeah.
And what's the damage, right? Get him on the 2-way.
We're sitting here talking about Comtois and Gurianov. So those guys are going to get contracts. Why can't Puuljarvi? Totally. I'm starting to even think maybe Comtois or Gurianov could come like real nice and cheap. Gurianov, there's always the thing of like, some KHL team's going to offer him $2.5 million.
Yeah.
So like,
Comtois is a player I would like the others to grab this summer. I feel like he's going to be a bit cheaper.
If you move Fogle. Because again, then your left side, you're looking at Nuge, Hyman or Kane, right?
That's the thing with the Oilers I think need to do this summer. Like, I have no issue with Warren Fogle. I actually want him on the team next season.
Me too. I want to see out. I've been vocal about this. I want to see out contract year Fogle.
But if you can get a guy who is $1 million less, what would that be? 175, 1.5? Yeah. Klim Kostin, for example. You can play a very similar role. Like, what's the difference, right? Like, you're saving $1 million. The Oilers need to be flexible and need to find ways to be that.
Yeah, I think Comtois, if you can get him for 1.5 and then you can dump Fogle somewhere, it's a dream scenario. You're saving yourself 1.25. You're getting a player with upside, younger version of the same guy, more or less. So there you go. There's our short for giant offseason question, all centered around Frank Seravalli's fair.
What about Tyson Yost?
I feel like I just had a stroke trying to read that. That was terrible, bro.
There is a couple of guys who are going to go to arbitration. So we'll see what happens with them. Yeah. But Yost, I wouldn't touch Yost.
No, I'm good.
He's kind of just a guy that's...
What list are you looking at?
If you all it's on the website, dailyfaceoff.com.
Oh.
So it says arbitration cases looming. So Trent Frederick is on there. Will Borgen
in Seattle.
Tyson Yost, I wouldn't touch him.
I'm good.
Noah Gregor.
Yeah. Bring him home.
Noah Gregor would be a great fit.
Dude, he skates like a demon. He shoots the puck, scores in bunches. Like,
left winger, cheaper than Fogle.
Last name Gregor?
Yeah, I know one man in Edmonton that would love that. His dad.
He's an unbiased journalist.
Sorry, I was talking about...
you weren't talking about Uncle.
No.
His father, yeah. Who was also quite the hockey player.
Is it?
Zach McEwen? That's a Kenny Holland player.
Weren't we linked to him at the
time? Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked.
I wouldn't be shocked either.
And then there's a couple of guys depth guys, Dylan Coughlin, Logan Brown, Kiefer Bellows. I don't know.
I like Logan Brown. I like, and I don't hate Kiefer Bellows either.
If you want some depth, I think
I like how you copy paste his name, bro. Logan Brown is very easy to type out.
Yeah, but now I don't have to because I copy and pasted it. Logan Brown, career high, 11 points.
Chell says, I really like Fogle. I like Fogle too,
I like him as well.
Like, you gotta make money where you can, right?
You gotta be flexible. Do you know what else I really liked? Tyson Barrie.
Yeah, but again, that's the cost of doing business, right?
Yeah, Kenny Holland's got to be creative. I trust Ken Holland to be more creative now that we've seen the Ekholm deal come through than I ever had before. One other thing, sorry. Are we Are we going to this?
I'm looking at quads.
Okay.
We'll probably get to quads right away.
I was going to say, Athanasiou got his new deal yesterday.
Yeah, that boy got paid.
Yes. I saw it and I thought that is hilarious. He is one of 2 players on the Chicago Blackhawks who are NHL players.
I can't wait for the Hawks to just spend their $40 million on just the most average players.
Yes. Max Domi's getting $5 million now.
All right. Like I said, over the next couple of weeks here, we're going to be previewing every team in the Pacific Division for our off-season previews. Brought to you by Star Mechanical. They are Edmonton's #1 plumbing and heating company. StarMechanical.ca. David Quadrelli from Canucks Conversation and CanucksArmy.com. Quads, Kevin Gausman's size is growing by the minute. Your thoughts?
I was impressed, okay? And I know what this is about. This is about me messaging Bagged Milk because there was an article on Blue Jays Nation that I oversaw that said, okay, Gausman wasn't part of this MLB.com poll that said the top 5 pitchers in the AL. So I listed off who I thought was better for Bagged Milk, and he had a problem with this, of course. I was impressed. That 13 strikeout performance, you can't deny it at that point. I think he is the best splitter in baseball. And look, that's a league that also has Shohei Ohtani in it. So the fact that I'm saying that about Kevin Gausman is, it's about as glowing a review as I think I can give. Look, his command's been awesome. You look at all the advanced stats as well. It's pretty undeniable. So I can't really back that claim up anymore, especially with, a guy like Eduardo Rodriguez on the shelf and all the other guys that are ahead of him in ERA. All of those guys look like they're about to take a step down. So I better get off this ship before it goes down all the way.
And he's still getting like BABIP to death. So like if the luck turns around for him. Anyways, speaking of baseball podcast, Blue Jays Nation Radio, after every Blue Jays series, find it wherever you get your podcast from. And adding to our baseball network of podcasts is the Batter's Box with David Quadrelli. When's episode 1 drop, buddy?
Friday, tomorrow. We're going to be doing the first episode. Going to be a lot of fun. Me and Mike Liu, he's my co-host. We're going to have a lot of fun. We did our practice episode 0, and somehow that became a conversation about Fujinami, the pitcher in Oakland. And that was about a 20-minute conversation. So you're sure to have a fun time when you come listen to the Batter's Box.
In-depth baseball talk. But you were here to talk Vancouver Canucks and this upcoming offseason. If there is a whiteboard in the office of Patrick Alvin and Jim Rutherford, and it says to-do list, number 1 has to be create cap space in Vancouver. What's the most likely way you think they do that this summer?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, right? Because I was having this conversation yesterday on Canucks Conversation with my good pal Chris Faber, and what we were talking about was that LA Kings trade, right? Like that LA Kings trade came, at least in my opinion, as a direct result of the news from Commissioner Gary Bettman that the cap is only going to be going up a minimal amount. When there's another minimal cap increase, that's when teams who are having these conversations, I've had this confirmed by a few different people, there's been a lot of conversations, excuse me, that alarm, there's been a lot of different conversations going on kind of behind the scenes, but what teams were waiting for was, okay, well, if it's going up by 3 or 4 million, we're not going to make this trade, right? So does that trade happen? Like the Kings wanted to get Gavrikov. They want to have some cap flexibility. Does that trade happen if there's a cap increase of about 4 million, which is what a lot of people thought we were going to see with the escrow debt being paid off in October, or set to be paid off shortly here? No, I don't think it does. And with that in mind, for the Canucks, if that increase had happened, the Canucks, yes, they still would have been in salary cap trouble, which is hilarious to say that they have the worst salary cap situation of any team in the league, given where they've been in the standings the past few years. But yes, it would have given them some flexibility. Is it enough to make them not have to make a Connor Garland trade? Because I think that's the direction that this is going, guys, is look, Connor Garland's a pretty good player. There's been talk of Chicago wanting to move up in the draft. Do they want to go after a guy like Matthew Wood with the 11th pick, a guy who played with Connor Bedard here in North Vancouver? Look, there's a lot of different options, and you kind of look at it, and I think the only option for the Canucks to trade down would be with the Chicago Blackhawks. So does Chicago want to bring in a guy like Connor Garland and pay next to nothing because they have what is now the most valuable asset in the league, and that's cap space? The Chicago Blackhawks have that cap space. They can give up other assets in order to bring in a player that they like, that they might otherwise have to pay a pretty penny for. They're going to get him for next to nothing. So it's not a great situation for the Vancouver Canucks, but they've put themselves in this position, right? Like, nobody held a gun to their head and said, you have to extend JT Miller. Nobody said you have to sign Ilya Mikheyev. Nobody said you can't flip Andrei Kuzmenko for an asset at the deadline. Nobody forced them into these moves that they've made, so now they have to deal with it. This was always a real possibility. We know with the memorandum of understanding that this was always going to be something that teams had to keep on their radar. Look, I think with this news that the cap's not really going to go up, I think we're headed toward a Connor Garland trade personally.
Interesting. What about JT Miller? We had Frank on yesterday talking about the value of this guy, and it feels like for trading a player who almost had 100 points a couple years ago, the Canucks, if they move him, aren't looking at getting the haul you'd expect. Would it be a mistake to trade JT Miller, or if you were in the GM seat, is that something you'd be pushing for before his NMC kicks in on July 1?
I would push for it. I would push for it, and I've been pretty steadfast in saying that. But with that in mind, the question I'll pose to you guys is, and I'll answer it myself, but the question is, what would a team want JT Miller for? Or why would any team trade for him? It's because he's still a pretty good player, and if you're a competitive team, you sign these free agents. You sign them for past performances, and you hope that they can repeat those performances in at least the first 3 or 4 years of their contract. And I'd say with JT Miller, that's a pretty reasonable expectation that he's going to be, between a 70 to 100 point player for at least the next 3 or 4 years. So if you're the Canucks, you're asking yourselves, okay, we'd like that cap flexibility down the line, but if the cap's going to go up in next season, be 24-25, that is, if it's going to go up by like 6 or 9 million, they're going to be fine. It's not going to be a contract that hurts them, especially in the short term. So what does the cap look like when JT Miller is no longer a consistent contributor and somebody that you're willing to have for that cap hit? When is that, right? Because I think that's what every team is kind of weighing when they sign any free agent, is what are we getting in these first 3 years? And if we're going to go for it, then we want this player on our team. So if you're the Canucks, who somehow think that they are a playoff team and that they're going to make a push for the playoffs this season and beyond, and they're going to keep building, they go out and trade for Filip Hronek. This kind of shows you their mindset and where they think they're at. If you think you're where the Canucks think they're at, you keep JT Miller. And look, I think at the end of the day, I think they end up keeping him. I don't think any team is going to buck up with what the Canucks want to get him away from the Canucks. I don't think any team's going to pay that price. So at the end of the day, I think they are going to keep him. Me personally, I would probably move him just for the cap flexibility, both in the short term and the long term. Yeah, I know it makes you a worse team, but even saying it out loud now, like, I'm actually not as sure because they've already made the Filip Hronek trade. If they still have that first and second round pick, and they're still kind of at a point where they can say, okay, we're going to go into more of a rebuild than a retool, then I think I would say, yeah, definitely trade JT Miller. But I think now that I think about it a little bit more as I talk it through here, the Canucks have kind of made their bed here. Like, they've decided, okay, we're not rebuilding and we're going to retool and we want to be competitive next year. It would be a disaster to have a bad season again next year. Very real possibility, but I don't think you actively make your chances of having a bad season next year worse.
We have a bit on the show, the AMA Travel Trade Machine, which spits out a hypothetical trade for us to debate every day. This was the deal yesterday, Quads. The Penguins get JT Miller. The Canucks get Marcus Pettersson, Sam Poulin, and a first-round pick. Who says no to this?
I think the Canucks might say no to it, but I don't think they should. Like, I don't think they should, right? Like, you're getting a defenseman. That's something the Canucks want. I don't know much about Sam Poulin, but hey, he's a forward, signed at a pretty friendly cap hit. First round pick. Look, like, I think the Canucks say no because we know they were looking for the 2 first-round picks, and I don't know how high they are on Marcus Pettersson. They are collecting all the Petterssons they can, it seems like. But
exactly,
exactly, that's your Pettersson quota. You're hitting it for sure. But look, I honestly, like, I think the Canucks say no to this trade. I don't think they should.
All right. What else do you think they're going to be looking to accomplish? Like, let's say the Garland deal happens or they find a way to move out some cap space in another way. Like, what's priority number 1 with that cap space?
I think it's finding a third line center, right? Like,
Okay.
Ivan Barbashev was somebody that was kind of, we heard rumblings about the Canucks being interested in him. Gavrikov as well, both Dan Milstein clients. And that's the joke here in Vancouver, is that any Dan Milstein client ends up signing with the Canucks. Mikheyev, Kuzmenko, Klimovich, the list goes on. I think there's about 6. And they traded one at the deadline too. But um, to that point, I think it's a third line center. Like, I think it's a third line center. I don't think it's Barbashev at this point with what he's doing in the playoffs. I think Vegas is going to try very hard, as they should, to keep him in Vegas. And if not, I think some team's going to overpay for him. And I don't think the Canucks want to be that team. They might want to be that team, but they might not be able to. So it might be saving them from themselves there a little bit. But I think a third line center is what the team really wants. And, the thing that we've always talked about in this market is, well, they need a right-handed defenseman, but they got it. They got it in Philip Hronek. And I don't know how much more, like the most pressing need definitely is a third line center. Cause when you move on from Bo Horvat, it wasn't pretty here in Vancouver. Like after that with the center depth, thankfully JT Miller started to play center somewhat respectably, because, hey, back to the Miller conversation, guys. A big reason people were back on that train is because at the start of the year, Miller was incapable of playing center. Like, he couldn't do it. He was missing defensive assignments. He could not play center. His numbers at the wing compared to center were night and day. It quite frankly, it was mind-boggling to watch, and that's why people wanted him traded so badly. There was smashing of the stick, all sorts of stuff with body language and all that sort of crap. But Rick Tocchet came in and kind of said, like, yeah, that's not going to happen here anymore. And then Miller started playing center really well. So, look, I don't know if it was a, same old song and dance thing with Miller, where he just came in and didn't have the best attitude because he was disappointed with the team around him. I don't know. He would never say that, of course. But yeah, like, they need him to play center. And even with him playing center, they still need a third line center, because, look, Nils Aman, he played on the fourth line last year. He's probably not going to graduate to much more than a fourth line center.
I got one for you, Quads.
All right.
Rick Tocchet obviously comes in after Bruce Boudreau, and we got a front row seat of Boudreau's last game because it was against the Oilers. What's kind of the vibes around Tocchet? Like, do the players like him? Are the fans kind of getting attached to him like Boudreau? Like, what's the impact he's had in the short amount of time he's been there?
I like him. I like him a lot. I haven't been shy about saying that. I like what he says. I like what he does. The only complaint that I think I and a lot of fans have about Tocchet is when he got here, he said, like, okay, wins and losses don't matter. We just need to start rolling all 4 lines, limiting the ice time of our stars, and just getting everybody to play a strong system. So when he said that, the Canucks were 5th last in the league. Prime shot at Connor Bedard. Okay. So everybody was really excited. They were like, yeah, we're going to see a lot more losses. We're going to see the team work a lot harder. So they're not going to be as hard to watch. It's just going to be okay, they don't have the skill to win. They don't have the players that are going to make them capable of winning. But then toward the end of the year, Tocchet kind of, and I don't know where this came from, but Tocchet kind of started to run the Stars quite a bit. And then the Canucks, obviously, as you guys know, went on that heater to close out the season when Quinn Hughes playing close to 30 minutes a night, Elias Pettersson's 25 plus. And look, when you play those guys like that, and they're going the way they were, like, those guys had incredible seasons this year. They're gonna win some games for you, and that's exactly what happened. So I think that's the only complaint people have about Tocchet. Look, are people as attached to him as they were as Bruce Boudreau? No, I don't think we'll ever see that. To be honest with you, I don't think we'll ever see that again. I don't know if we'll see a chant for the coach in his first game ever again in Vancouver. I don't think we'll see that. But further to that, guys, like, I don't think people outside of the market really understand just how beaten and battered people were by the Jim Benning era of Canucks hockey, right? Like, just bad move after bad move, and you say it's a bad move, and then there's this one side of the fan base that was just like, no, it's not a bad move, here's why, and then it just keeps happening and happening. The OEL Garland trade now is, going to hamstring the Canucks for years and years, when they were one year away from getting off of all that bad money that was on the books with Louis Eriksson, Antoine Roussel, and Jay Beagle. Like, that did a number on the fans. Fans wanted something to believe in, and that's what Boudreau represented. Because look, like, yeah, Travis Green was who Boudreau replaced, but it was also Jim Benning and Travis Green were out. Fans didn't really dislike Travis Green for the most part in this market. He's a pretty respected coach in this market. Obviously, there's a lot more fans now that kind of say, okay, well, he wasn't the problem now that we've seen Boudreaux go through and all that sort of stuff. And hey, Rick Tocchet is a really good friend of Travis Green. They're pretty similar coaches. Like, that's the thing that I've said kind of quietly, is they're pretty similar in their thought process and the way they do things. Obviously, Rick Tocchet's a little more experienced than Travis Green. I think he's pretty well suited to do the job that is in Vancouver. Look, it's a tough market, but Tocchet was always really good with the media here. I really liked him personally. I thought he was a good coach. He's well liked in this market for the most part. Like, there's, like I said, there's still some fans that are, have been hurt too many times before to get attached to a coach. So they're immediately just saying, I don't like this coach. For the most part, though, he's a well-liked coach in this market.
Quads, thanks for hopping on today, man. Look forward to your coverage of what could be an interesting Canucks offseason.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
There you go, David Quadrelli for Star Mechanical, Edmonton's #1 plumbing and heating company, starmechanical.ca. Brock Besser, JT Miller, Connor Garland, Tyler Myers, a lot of guys potentially on the block there, Liam.
Wasn't Demko on the block for a little bit at some point?
Know.
That one feels a bit out there. But
yeah, that feels out there.
It's just kind of funny. There's a lot going on in Vancouver with literally negative cap space.
Yeah. Let's get to our player card for today. It's brought to you by UFC 289, headlined by Nunez versus Aldana. 6 Canadians on the card. David Quadrelli, I think he's going to be there because it's in Vancouver. We're going to be watching on pay-per-view in our living rooms. UFC 289 this Saturday. Today's player card is Ryan McLeod, number 71. We're cruising through these player cards, by the way. Ryan McLeod, he had a good year. He was just banged up. It maybe wasn't like the massive step forward that I was hoping for. 20-goal guy who helps you in all these areas. But 11 goals in 57 games, 23 points. That's nearly a 40-goal pace. For a guy who spends basically no time with McDavid or Draisaitl, compare Fogle gets a few games, right? Yamamoto plays there a ton. All the wingers eventually get shuffled through with McDavid and Draisaitl. McLeod doesn't get that advantage, doesn't get that luxury. He still finds a way to score 11 goals for you. If he plays 82 games next year, I think, again, you can look at him and go, legit chance to bang home 20.
Yeah, I think so, too. I think that's fair. Like you said, he's asked to play a role outside of the top 6, and I think he does it very well. I think he's very noticeable in a lot of areas on the ice. He's got a bright future, and
he does.
It's kind of just too bad for him in one way that he plays behind McDavid and Draisaitl.
But I think that's a perfect
also
fit.
A massive positive for him, too, because pressure's off, and to be honest, he's a pretty high pick, right at the top of the second round there. So I love Ryan McLeod. I think this season was positive in a multiple of ways, and it's got to see it keep going in the right direction.
I gave him a B- for his regular season grade. Again, nearly a 20-goal pace or a 15, 16-goal pace, whatever you want to call it. That's pretty good for your third-line center. I think he took some steps forward in other areas of his game. Left me, I don't want to give him an A because, again, I was hoping he'd be a 20-goal guy this year. He didn't end up being that. So a B-. In the playoffs, he didn't score. He was one of the guys who you wanted more from. In this playoff run, no goals in 12 games, only 5 assists. Ryan McLeod could have been a difference maker for them. Wasn't. I give him a D+ for the playoffs. Chance of returning, though, 98%. There's an outside chance that the Oilers sit there and go, we can't afford him at 2 point whatever, or we prefer Bukestad. I don't think they should think that way. I just think there's a chance they might. And maybe they trade McLeod for like a second-round pick or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't know exactly why they would do that, but I think there's a small chance it happens.
I could see it. I think he'd be like option 6 or 7 on the list to move out.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's fair to say 100%, unfortunately. But I agree with your grades. I mean, like you said, in the playoffs, you need a little bit more from him. Yep. It's your second time around now. Scored a big goal in the playoffs last year, if I remember correctly, against Colorado. Need more from him. Overall, though, positive season for Mr. McLeod.
Yep, I think so. Somehow this turned into Darnell Nurse talk in the chat. We're not doing that. So there's your player card for Ryan McLeod, number 71, B- in the regular season, 98% chance of coming back. I really hope. I would love to see him have a breakout year next year and just score in bunches. He's got to shoot the puck more. That's his thing.
What's your lofty goal for Mr. McLeod?
So like this year, he had 78 shots in 57 games. So that's like 1.5 shots a game. Yeah. If he can get that up to 2.5 shots a game, even if his shooting percentage stays the same, I think we're looking at 21 goals for Ryan McLeod and a good piece on their PK. guy who drives play with his speed. That's my outer marker. 21 goals for McLeod. He gets an A+ next year.
Mine was 18.
Okay.
So we're in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there would be great to see. I think he'll hit it. He's just got to stay healthy. That's his thing, right? Has he played 82 games in a season before?
No. 71 in 21-22. So, yeah.
Because he started the season in Bakersfield last year.
That year, yeah, he did.
So, career year.
Yep. Have an 82-game season, Ryan McLeod. Why not?
2 short-handed goals, too, actually.
Yeah. AMA Travel, trade machine, amatravel.ca. Whatever you're looking to save on, rental car, hotel, flights, all of it. Travel insurance, AMA Travel has you covered. I use them to book a trip this September. I use them for my Seattle trip. You'll notice a trend in most of my time off. It's all centered around sports. I'm a very one-dimensional human. So in July, I'm driving to Seattle to watch the Jays. And then in September, I'm flying to Toronto because I want to see the changes they made to the ballpark.
I actually had a nice, pleasant sports surprise today, Tyler. So as you know, I'm going away to Europe for 3 weeks. And during that time is exhibition preseason for soccer.
Yeah.
And my team, Bolton Wanderers, were not playing at home. I found out today they have now scheduled a game against Everton on the first day I get to Bolton.
That's nice.
So I'll be going. I'm very excited. So that's good.
That's in August, right?
August, July. Yeah.
End of July. Yeah. All right. Anyways, here's our AMA Travel trade machine for the day. We're going back to the Alex DeBrincat well. He's going from Ottawa to Seattle. I think the Kraken could be itching after their first franchise playoff berth. And listen, Ottawa traded a first, second, and third for him. They're going to give up Jagger Furcus and a first-round pick to get Alex DeBrincat. They're going to sign him as well. Furcus, again, young guy, probably not ready to take a jump to the NHL this season, but 2 years from now could factor into that bottom 6 there in Ottawa, and they get a first-round pick back. Seattle gets DeBrincat. They get a chance to sign him. Boom, done deal.
I actually quite like this trade. I think Ottawa's getting 2 very good assets for a guy that doesn't want to play there. So
you took a stab with trading the first, second, and third for him. You're going to recoup a good chunk of that year.
Yep. So that's very good. And then I wonder if Shane Wright could be involved in this trade. I wonder if they get rid of the first and they just go Shane Wright for DeBrincat.
I think it's too much.
You think
can't
so?
give up on Shane Wright in his draft plus 1 year. Coachella Valley's in the Calder Cup finals right now. Shane Wright's playing.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah. How many playoff points does he have? I saw he had his DB open.
6 and 17. It's not awful. 2 goals. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Coachella. Okay. They play. I didn't know that was that team.
Their jerseys are sick.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe Shane Wright's a bit too much. I like the trade. Fergus is a very good player. Was he on Moose Jaw this year, I think? 80, 90 points, whatever he got.
Mulek said it's fair. Brian said not enough for DeBrincat. Somewhat. Alex said Ottawa would be crazy. Sobake said not nearly enough. Here's what you have to remember right now. A year ago, DeBrincat had 2 more years of being an RFA. It was like you get him, you test drive him, you try to sign him long term. He went for a first, a second, and a third. He's coming off a down year. So his stock is a little bit lower, not coming off that 40-goal season anymore. He only has 1 more year till he's a UFA. Whatever team's acquiring him is going to want to talk extension, which means DeBrincat is going to he basically has a no movement clause.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because he can just say, no, I don't want to negotiate with them. No, I don't want to negotiate with them. So if he sits there and goes, I only want to go to Buffalo, Detroit, Seattle. Those are my 3 teams. That's all I care about. Or those are the only 3 teams where there's mutual interest. That's going to hurt his value, man. And a first in Furcus is still like, you're getting 2 good assets. And a first in the 2023 draft, that's a good pick.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, that is probably a decent little deal for them. Furcus is good. Yep. Furcus is a guy at the draft last year. A lot of people were being like, look out for this guy. 1, because he has a great mustache and great hair. Great name, too.
Yes.
And also because he's a very, very good hockey player.
Okay, let's take a look at our Betway Other Sports report, which starts with the same sport, hockey. Game 3, Stanley Cup Finals tonight. I'm a guy who's locked into some Florida Panthers bets.
Yep.
I still think they come back in this series. I think they win tonight, Liam.
I think they have to win tonight.
Well, yeah, it is more or less a must win. My 2 favorite bets on Betway, 19+, please play responsibly. Mark Stone has hit his shot prop in 4 straight, including putting up 7 shots in game 1. His line is paying even money on Betway, set at 2.5. Love that. Also, Matt Tkachuk. He's hit his shot prop in 3 of 5. I think that's a guy stepping back onto home ice who is going to be very, very, very fired up to make a difference, and that's going to involve him throwing a lot of rubber on net. So give me Tkachuk and Stone on the shot props in Florida to win.
I might go Tkachuk goal. Plus 115.
Don't
It
hate
seems
that.
kind of nice.
Don't hate that at all. I'm also sweating out a Brewers Dodgers money line parlay. That's looking pretty good. Dodgers up 6-rip on the Reds. Brewers up 3-0 on the Orioles. So there you go. Shout out to Betway 19+. Please play responsibly. Just Liam and maybe Jay tomorrow.
Maybe bag milk too.
Maybe bagged milk. You have to ask him.
Aaron will be here.
Yeah.
I always get him on the mic. The one time I've done a show.
You guys will have a lot of fun on a Friday edition of Oilers Nation Everyday. Shout out to everyone in the YouTube chat. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button as well. Lance says, Tyler, you have to be on the radio soon. I know, and I still got to eat lunch. So I got to go do that. Everyone have a good Thursday. I'll chat with you Monday. Liam's in the big chair tomorrow. See you then.